Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Policy Committee meeting to order. And then we will go on to item 2 and open up for public comment. I don't see anybody. Bonnie, anything? Nope. Okay. We can move on to the approval of minutes. So the last meeting we've had was on December 16th, 2024. So we have those minutes. Any questions on any of those? Okay, I will make a motion to approve. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're good on that. So tonight we have several policies to get through. This is the big push from the spring of all the different legislative changes that had gone through. So we're going to just work through these. A lot of them are related to one another based on a law changing. So I'm going to kind of try and tie that together for everyone so that they can understand where the changes are coming from. So our first item, though, is the 2025-26 policy calendar. Did everyone get a chance to see that? And does anyone have any questions on those dates? It's pretty straightforward. Okay.
And I think our plan with that would be to move that forward to the full board tonight.
Tonight, I did see it on there for approval from the full board. Okay. Okay, so then item 2, policy 2260, that's the uniform grievance procedure. So this policy was updated because some of Title IX changes, which we'll talk about in item 3. But I'll just leave that there for a second and then we'll go on to item 3. We can talk about what changed there. So item 3 is policy 2265, Title IX grievance procedure. So this was rewritten because of some Title IX changes at the federal level due to a Supreme Court challenge. So what happened here is that most of the Title IX changes have reverted back to what it was in 2020 and removing some different language from the policy there. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, so then just so we can kind of understand as we go through, this is going to impact the uniform grievance policy, the Title IX grievance procedure, the equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment policy, the workplace harassment prohibited policy, equal educational opportunities, and then we've got also policy 720, policy 7180, and policy 7185. So we're going to see this one policy change is going to impact all of those. So when we get to those, I'll just kind of explain that it's due to the Title IX changes. There was one additional piece for the Title IX changes, and that's needing a Title IX coordinator. Dr. Barrett, do we have that person identified?
Yeah. Dr. Law is here to be here with us tonight and answer any questions we might have about some of these policies, and he would be identified formally as that person in the district as our HR person.
Okay, perfect. So that will just be listed in the policy then as Dr. Law.
We have to list an individual on staff who would be that person, and then as you know, and maybe Adam can talk about this as well, but you know, within our then grievance procedure or process, we also have an additional complaint coordinator that can work with Adam if some concerns and issues come up, and you know, candidly, sometimes if there's an issue that comes up specifically related to Title IX and that may be significant, we'll call our attorneys too, because we want to make sure we're by the book on that. Yes, sir.
So Dr. Law is
Mike. Yeah.
So Dr. Law, discrimination and coordinating from Title IX is all one hand. So
There you go.
That. Yeah. So the two hats. One is the complaint manager, and that would be both me and also Melissa Groot, who's one of our special education administrators. And so the complaint managers were listed under the a couple policies, but most significantly the uniform grievance policy. And then when we were asked to designate the Title IX coordinator, then I was identified as that. But again, I do pull in Ms. Groot, just when we have some of those conversations as well.
But not to say I was trying to ask anything other than being overloaded like the Secretary of State. You know, I'm just saying, wearing too many hats. I mean, we are in that arena, but the idea, I just wanted to make sure you weren't being overloaded or something like that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, then, so we'll move on to item 4. This is policy 415, identity protection. This was updated because of an updated definition of PII, personally identifiable information. So that applies to this one and to the next policy, 480, which is item 5, accounting and audits. Oh, no, sorry. Item 5 is updated because of an amendment that was updated at the state level. So that's just to be in line with the different laws that we have in the state. Item 6 is policy 510, equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment. So again, updated because of Title IX on that one. Item 7, policy 520, workplace harassment prohibited. Again, updated because of Title IX changes here. Item 8,
And
policy.
again,
sorry,
I think
go
it's
ahead.
fair to say largely what we're talking about in this is kind of legalese language that has changed because of that, not our district practices for
Yeah.
addressing any of these important issues that come up. It's, for example, in this one, I think as an example for folks to know, it's like changing the name of the non-discrimination coordinator to the Title IX coordinator. It doesn't change the actual practices that we would have in place as a district.
Yep, good point. Okay, so then we have item 8, policy 560, reimbursement expenses. This was just updated due to a legal reference that was changed, so no actual language in the policy changes, just some updates on that legal reference. Item 9, policy 5100, staff development program. So this one's updated because of a new law that was created at the state level, and this has to do with the training based on that new law. So that's the other big one for tonight that's going to impact a lot of policies that we have. So that's the ensuring success in schools law. So that's going to impact item 9, item 10, item 13, 14, 15, 19, 20, 22, and 21, just to kind of get an idea that this carries through to a lot of them. One of these policies is actually the creation of a new policy because of this new law that was put in place. So with the ensuring success in schools law, there was a lot of information in the policies about that and where that came from. Dr. Barrett, did you want to share it all about that, or I can share some information?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm happy to share that. I think, sometimes new laws come because of hope and promise and great things that people are aspiring to, and sometimes I think new laws come because there were some current concerns out there with practices that are happening some places, and a law was created to kind of address some of those challenges. And I think that that's probably, I don't know for sure, but I think that that's probably part of the impetus for this law. This law largely talks about how you would support students who are also expectant parents. And I think that, in our district, for example, if we have that scenario, pretty much all of the things that are laid out in this law would be things our district has already done. I think it's probably fair to say in a more informal way, right? These are all practices that we would have put in place to support this student. My interpretation would be maybe there were some places that weren't doing everything that they could have been doing to support students in this unique situation. And so the law was generated for that reason, and that's kind of what drives all these policy changes. I do think it will be important to know, and we can, we can talk about it a little bit in here. Like I said, this will definitely put a level of formality into some practices that, if we have experienced this situation in the past, we have done informally, and so it will probably mean not probably, it will mean required trainings for some individuals that maybe we haven't done before. It will mean documentation of practices and supports that we would have provided in the past, but maybe we wouldn't have documented it in that way, or followed the same kind of compliance mechanism when we were doing that. So, but I think that's, in general, I think that's the impetus, and we don't think that any of the expectations that would be in here to support, students who are parents or expectant parents, that's all good. That's all stuff we would want to be doing to support students in that unique situation.
Thank you. I think that is a good overview of the policy. So again, that's called the Ensuring Success in School. It's in many places referred to as the ESS law. So if you see ESS, that's the Ensuring Success in School law. And again, it's just to reiterate, it's created in response to the ESS law requiring districts to ensure that they have policies, procedures, and resources in place to ensure that Article 26A students are provided with support services necessary to enable them to meet state educational standards and successfully attain a school diploma. So I think some good things, and mostly things that we're doing. There are some, I know you had spoke about the trainings, and then we do have to identify specific people at different schools that
Yes.
that could be resources for
Yeah.
this.
Like, I think that's a perfect example of if we have had that situation in the past, we've had multiple people who were resources for these individuals. In this case, now we'll need to formally designate someone as this is the go-to resource person if we have this situation come up. So we can do that, and Anne Scalia and her team are aware of this, and
Okay.
this from the student services perspective. As I think she and her team are very skilled with the compliance component of all this kind of thing, so they're on top of it already. But it will take some work on their end to get us up to speed, or not get us up to speed, but to get all of those formalities in place. I
Right.
guess.
Okay, great. Okay, let me just see where we were here. Okay, so then next it was item 10, policy 6150, home and hospital instruction. Again, this is updated based on the new ESS law, because this may pertain to our expectant parents. Item 11, policy 6235, access to electronic networks. So this one is in addition to a new policy, so really something updated specifically around our policies centered around AI and AI usage. So this was something that the state, that at the federal level and the state level, that they looked at to ensure that boards had some policies in place so that we can make sure that we are leading AI in the district, and we're thinking about that. So I just wanted to share a little bit of what this policy is asking the district to do going forward. So to implement the use of AI-enabled tools in the district, the superintendent or designee shall develop a district-wide AI plan that addresses the district's approach to the integration of AI. Based on the plan, they have to establish AI responsible use guidelines to address the responsible use of AI in the district. They need to ensure the AI-enabled tools comply with state and federal law, ensure the staff receive training and students receive instruction on the use of AI, and review the district's AI plan and AI responsible use guidelines on an annual basis. So Dr. Barrett, would you be able to share maybe what I know this is a new policy, so we may not have made a lot of progress on this, but
Sure.
where we're at and what we've been doing to work on AI so far?
Yeah, I think this is a subject that we as this team have talked about. The board team, maybe even us having an opportunity to dig into it deeply at like a future retreat or something like that. But and I think we'd be open to more conversation on that. That could be valuable. In terms of what the district has been up to, I'm going to turn it over to Shawnette. Shawnette and Mike Wilkes have actually, of course, not to be surprised, have already started several of these things before this was even a law, because they knew this was something we needed to be paying attention to. So I'll let Shawnette talk through kind of where we're at to date on this subject.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett. Yeah, actually, the first time we pulled a group together was in late spring of the 23-24 school year. That representative group met throughout this school year. In terms of the 5 items that are listed, we have developed a district-wide AI plan that addresses our district's approach to how to utilize AI both as an instructor and as a learner. That obviously will ebb and flow, though, as more comes to be known about AI and as iterations of it come to play. We also know that while it has not happened yet, we anticipate that even some of our curriculum resources are going to start having that embedded within. So we know this is not going to be something that's going to be done overnight. Number 2, the district-wide AI plan, establishing AI responsible use guidelines. We actually have done that, and those are available on our hub to all of our staff members. Again, we'll look at those at the start of next school year to make sure they still are in line with what we currently know, what more we may have learned, and then with just how it's being used within our schools currently. The 3 and 4 are a little bit combined, ensuring that our AI-enabled tools comply with state and federal law. Mr. Wilkes, feels strongly that given our, adoption process and compliance with SOPA, that we are in line with, how we're utilizing that. Also, our, AI tool that we would recommend our staff use is the Microsoft Copilot, because that goes along with our other Microsoft tools. The yet thing that we need to develop, and this was actually one of the last conversations we had with our committee this few months ago in late spring, was the staff training and instruction on the uses of AI and how to embed that in their courses where appropriate. And then we are very fortunate, one of our members is going to he's enrolled in a master's program for technology masters for educators, and he is actually allowed to use AI in his courses to help with all the assignments. But it's just the idea of how do you cite it, how do you give reference to. And the nice thing with that and him sharing that so openly is it kind of dissuaded the initial response of how do we make sure kids don't use this because of academic dishonesty. And so it's not going to go away.
Right.
So similarly to when the calculator came out, and how are kids going to know their facts at the calculator? We just have to know how to use this tool. So and then the 5th one, review the district's AI plan and responsible use guidelines. Again, we'll continue on an annual basis. That'll be the first thing we do every meeting, is to review that and ensure that, again, it's still in line with what we currently know, have learned, or if this act or law continues to evolve.
Who is part of the committee? Is that teachers or technology staff or mixture?
It's primarily teachers. There are a couple of administrators. There's an elementary and a secondary administrator as well, but it's primarily classroom teachers.
Okay, great. Have we thought about maybe including some of our high school students in that to or are we understanding how they're using AI or what that might look like?
That actually was a conversation we had this winter, was about where and when we start to evolve them, because we anticipate they will be our first, users of it. Not sure about, we didn't actually talk about adding them to the committee, which might be great. At that point, we were talking about surveying students to see how are they utilizing it, in what ways is it helping you, in what ways may it possibly hinder you, and things like that. The other thing we talked about was, as this grows, is there a way to also get representatives from the community and the world of work to come in and talk about how they are potentially using it in their world of work?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too, because I have also heard from parents who have said, what in as far as reading literacy or other types of curriculum, what is going to be needed for our students who in the future may have AI and may be able to use those systems instead. And not that we wouldn't need some of those skills anyway, but thinking about what does the future maybe look like with that? Yeah, it's a big topic.
It is, and it goes back, we had a speaker, was it 10, 12 years ago, came in, and it was the whole idea of search engines of, if a student can Google the answer, is it even a good question? Well, it's a similar kind of mindset.
Yeah.
It's what are those essential skills that students need to have, which I think puts more onus on, those personal skills and those interpersonal skills and the ability to communicate effectively and work with others from diverse backgrounds, all those things that we used to consider the soft skills, which actually are, you know, incredibly important and critical.
Yeah.
And it's also right now, the big thing is discerning the validity of what is being produced by that tool. Because,
Right, yeah.
You know, there are many inaccuracies that are being
Oh
produced.
yeah, 100%. And I think that's where we're at right now. So it may be more obvious, or like it might be teaching students how to use that appropriately. But I think we're moving so quickly on AI that we'll soon pass that threshold of accuracy, or that might not be our only concern. Like, so
Yeah. One of our members is a high school math teacher, and of course, because they're just intuitively interested in these kinds of things, they have been putting, you know, math problems through different
yeah.
ones, and there are a lot of errors.
errors. Yeah.
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 But
So. Did you have a question, Wally?
So, is there anything in the AI policy, or do they see anything on the horizon that might be akin to cyberbullying? Because I know it's not the same animal, so to speak, because if you use generative AI, I can see where that could really be
Yeah,
a problem.
good point.
For bullying. I mean, do they have anything about that?
There's not
It's too new,
something.
huh?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that there's evolving still.
yeah,
Yeah.
the fortunate thing I would say is I think that would still fall under our acceptable use of technology, which would be a kind of that broad umbrella where if it were used for those purposes would be, you know, caught under that policy to.
And just under our bullying policies.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. This is evolving so fast, and I want to commend you know, Shawnette and Mike for really nudging us to be paying attention to this. I also want to acknowledge we have staff all over the map on this in terms of understanding and comfort level, and you know, this kind of came out of nowhere not that long ago. You know, kind of to Shawnette's point about the importance of those executive functioning skills and everything. I remember honestly, it feels like just a few years ago, being at a presentation and having folks say, you know, you need to be teaching every single kid how to code because they're all going to have to go do it. And then I read an article last week that said, no one's going to code because AI is going to be doing all of the you know, it's just happening very rapidly. And so I do think one of the things we might want to target is once that group has done a little more and learns a little more and has shaped things a little more, maybe we want them to come and present and talk with the board and have an opportunity for the board to hear just a little bit of the realities on the ground, because it's real.
Yeah, I think that would be great, because I know it's on multiple different stakeholder groups' minds. So seeing like how we're addressing this, and then how we talk about that, not just with our students, but maybe our parents too, so that because that might be a group that's missing and like truly understanding it and how we might be using it in schools.
I would just add to, like, and thank you, because this committee is so important in getting that information. My sense is it's going to be a long-term committee, because I work at a university, and at the university level, we can't generate policies fast enough to keep up with what we're seeing. And also in preparation for students that are going to be going into college, AI is a major topic and something that if they're not aware of or understanding how to appropriately use it could cause major problems. So I appreciate all that work on the AI front.
Just a little bit. Not that we need to reinvent the wheel. I attended this is maybe over a year ago, DuPage division group. They had this Eric Santos. I don't know if you know that name, but he gave a rather compelling presentation on AI, in particular generative AI, and how it impacts not just students, but even new teachers in terms of lesson plans. They could just generate lesson plans. He showed how you could just take a few words, generate a song, and use it in nefarious ways as well as positive ways. So I have his information. It made, rather than reinvent the wheel, I thought it was a real good presentation.
Could be worth bringing somebody like that to that group.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the committee's work already and the dialogue around this. I think that we're ahead of the game, but we know that this is ever changing and a lot of work ahead still.
Ahead of the game, but way behind.
I know,
Right,
it's like,
it's-
yeah,
it's just
ahead of
the
the
reality.
policy game,
And
but
not
not the AI game.
Right,
Yes, hard
right.
to keep up. So, okay, great. So then on to item 12, policy 710. That's equal educational opportunities, and that is updated because of the Title IX changes. Then we've got policy 13.
I think that one's technically includes both.
Oh
Of
yeah,
the two
that
big,
one,
it
that one,
includes
and
both.
the next one include both with the ESS laws
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
So yeah. So the next one's policy 720, harassment of students prohibited. Then item 14, policy 760, residents. That's updated because of the ESS law. Item 15, policy 770, attendance and truancy, updated because of the ESS law. Item 16, policy 7180, prevention of and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment. That's updated because of Title IX changes and having that coordinator in there. And then there might have been an ESS part in that as well. So, item 17, policy 7185, teen dating violence prohibited, updated again because of Title IX. Item 18, policy 7190, student behavior. This one was updated because they updated and included a definition for sexting. So that is now included in the policy, which does impact a couple of other policies, but just a more clear definition on what that means. Item 19, policy 7200, suspension procedures. That's updated because of the ESS law. And then the same for policy, or item 20, policy 7210, expulsion procedures, updated for the ESS law.
I think that might be another one I would ask the policy committee here. I know this is something we've talked about previously as a board, or as the board team. And I know one of the things we're targeting for this upcoming year is kind of a deeper dive presentation into some of this data. And so I think just referencing that here for the policy committee, just that's on the radar, and we're building that into the calendar for the upcoming school year. We would probably just do it for the whole board and not bring it to policy.
Sure.
But I think that'll be a valuable opportunity.
And then we had discussed at one point about looking at the policy, or I know that our policy had included the option to maybe look at how we would do hearings for expulsions a little bit differently, and maybe having an outside party who did that rather than the board. But I don't know if we needed to look at that policy again to make sure that could be included, and then bring that to the full board to decide if that's something we wanted to move forward with, to have a more unbiased approach.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do remember those conversations. What do you think? Should we? I don't think, based on, I'm looking at the policy right now. I do think that is something we should talk about. I would recommend, though, still moving this policy forward as is, given our timelines for needing to have this policy formally adopted.
Right,
But
related
then
to-
maybe let's put like the AI policy. I'm looking at Bonnie because I'm going to need her help to remember this. Like the AI policy and this policy, maybe on a future policy committee meeting,
we can revisit.
where we could just revisit that particular topic.
Sure. Yep.
And have some more conversation about that, and then decide as a policy committee, does that need to go into our policy somewhere? That's a great idea, and that'd be good work for this committee, actually. Good call.
Okay, so then we are on to item 21, policy 7250, student support services, again updated because of the ESS law. Item 22, policy 7255. That's students who are parents, expectant parents, or victims of domestic or sexual violence. This is the new policy, so this was the policy specifically created because of the ESS law. So we discussed all of what that means, but this is all the details of the policy right here in policy 7255. Okay, item 23, policy 7270, administering medicines to students. This policy was specifically updated with one part, and that is stating that students who are diabetic or have epilepsy can possess their supplies on person during the school day. I don't think that that's something that we have a problem with, and I expect that that was made more in response to a cell phone law that's going to be changing going forward, because our diabetic students often use cell phones to monitor and administer their medication. So
That was my guess too, actually. I wasn't sure about that, but I know that, of course, here in our district, and I'm sure in every district, students in that situation have been empowered that way. And when I saw it, I thought exactly that.
yeah.
They're kind of preparing for a scenario where some districts might say completely eliminate cell phones, and you've got to have this piece in there for those students who need those for their health and well-being.
Yeah. Okay, so then item 24, policy 7310, restrictions on publications K through 8 schools. So that is updated because of the sexting definition, and then the same with the next policy 7315, restrictions on publications in high schools, and then item 26, policy 7340, student records. So that's again updated because of that same definition. Those are all the policies. Anything that we missed, guys? Any questions? Okay, so then can I get a motion to move those on to the full board? We'll send them to the full board for review, so they'll get a first reading and then an approval after that. So
moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, wonderful. So item 5 is information. I don't have any additional information. Dr. Barrett, anything?
No.
Okay, perfect. And then item 6, outstanding policy cleanup and review. Nothing for me on this one. Okay, and that brings us to adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.